Chapter 247. After hearing Feng Shang's words, everyone in the team was shocked. Especially Lin Feng, who turned his head and looked at Feng Shang with an expression that said, "You're awesome, my brother." Feng Yi had no choice but to pull his brother to the side and pretended to lecture him. "How can you have such thoughts? It's obvious that Spade Z is chasing after young Master Qin. Don't talk nonsense, okay? Especially when we're drinking, don't ever mention this to young Master Qin. Young Master Qin is narrow-minded and ruthless. His brother wouldn't even know how he died." Feng Shang was still stuttering, and he said seriously, Wasn't it Almighty Qin who dragged my idol away?" "Obviously, he did. Captain probably dragged him away to teach him a lesson." Lin Feng guessed with certainty. In the future, Captain will probably come up with more rules and regulations for Little Spade, such as not allowing him to do this, not allowing him to do that. Little Spade is so handsome, why does he like men? It's fine if he likes men, but the one he's chasing is Captain. Sigh, this is no different from seeking death. Do you know how much Captain hates gays? Although he respected other people's sexual orientation, the premise was that this kind of thing didn't happen to him. If anyone dared to touch him, he wouldn't be able to tolerate it. Besides, Captain was so skilled. Little Spade was hopeless. Even if he wanted to steal a kiss, he wouldn't be able to. He would definitely be beaten up by Captain. But don't worry, Little Shang, I like Little Spade so much that I won't let Captain kill him. Plus, as long as Little Spade doesn't act too obviously, Captain will definitely tolerate him a little. After all, the national competition is coming soon, and Supreme Alliance still needs him. The other team members listened and nodded in agreement. Shui Yaoyao stood there and thought of only one question. If His Highness Jiao stole a kiss from young Master Qin, would young Master Qin really beat him up? Or, no, I can't think like that. Shui Yaoyao patted her blushing face, but her eyes were full of little stars. Ever since they knew that Fu Jiao was going to chase after Qin Mo, everyone in the team was on high alert. They were afraid that Fu Jiao would do something that would anger their captain. If that happened, he would kill her directly. Therefore, they had a plan to completely isolate these two people. Little Spade, go sit beside Sister Yaoyao. You'll be able to shield her from the alcohol later. Lin Feng lowered his voice and said to Fu Jiao. After saying that, he felt that he was so handsome and smart. How could he be so quick-witted? Fu Jiao took off her jacket with one hand and nodded with a faint smile. She had always been gentle to Shui Yaoyao. But, seeing the youngster leave his side, Qin Mo's hand that was holding the wine glass paused for a moment. That pair of indifferent eyes looked up emotionlessly. He looked at Fu Jiao, who was 4 people away from him, and the bottom of his eyes became even colder. With that, Yunhu sat beside Qin Mo. When he sat down, the Supreme Alliance general stilled. Was there something wrong with his senses today? Why was his captain so cold? Chapter 248. Fu Jiao turned her fair and handsome face sideways, her silver hair falling behind her ears. She was still looking at the dishes on the menu with her fingertips, completely unaware that something was wrong. She asked Shui Yaoyao softly, "What do you want to eat? Are there any foods you don't like?" "Nope." Shui Yaoyao immediately shook her head. This time, Qin Mo laughed. Through the layers of lights in the restaurant, his eyes watched this scene. He tilted his head and lit a cigarette. When the smoke lingered, the coldness intensified. In fact, the two of them were too far away from Qin Mo to be able to sense his aura. Fu Jiao ordered a lot of things. She said to the waiter who was keeping accounts, "Do you have Budweiser for beer?" "Yes." "Give me 30 bottles first. I want the big ones. If it's not enough, I'll ask you to add more." Then, give me some ice. All right. It was normal for a dozen people to drink 30 bottles of beer, but no one would order ice when ordering beer. Therefore, the waiter couldn't help but take another look at the young man. Fujio turned around and raised her eyebrows. What? No ice? Yes. The waiter's heart skipped a beat and her face immediately turned red. She quickly wrote down the order and walked away shyly. This was not the main point. The main point was that the waiter was a man. The guy was even shy. The members of the Supreme Alliance looked at each other and immediately gave Fujio a thumbs up. Little Spade, you're really something. Fujio had an epiphany and curled her lips into a smile. I can't help it. Lin Feng could not hold it in any longer. He turned around and asked Yin Weiyao, Peking University, how did you get tricked into joining the team by this brat? How can you tolerate him like this? Yin Weiyao raised his head silently, refusing to comment. Am I not handsome? Fujio was asking Shui Yaoyao this question, and she didn't forget to show her seductive smile. Even though she knew it was a woman, Shui Yaoyao still felt like she had been electrocuted. She blushed and nodded. Look. Fujio tore open the chopsticks and put them in her mouth. She looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng turned his head and grabbed Yunhu's hand. I want to beat him up, what should I do? Give me a reason why you want to beat him up. Yunhu's voice was as deep and steady as he was. Lin Feng was very serious. He's more handsome than me. As long as it's a man here, which of them isn't more handsome than you? Yunhu caressed his head. Give up on that idea, you can't beat me up. Fujio, who was listening on the side, couldn't help but smile at Shui Yaoyao, as if they had some kind of tacit understanding. This made Qin Mo, who was sitting in the middle, smile even wider. Then, he raised his hand and extinguished the cigarette in his hand in the ashtray beside him. Yunhu felt his hands turning cold, but he couldn't find a reason. Lin Feng had always been someone who knew how to warm up the crowd. Once the beer was served, he filled everyone's mugs and stood up proudly. From today onwards, Supreme Alliance has new blood. Let's go to the National League and wipe them all out. Last year, our captain's hand was injured, and we weren't very good either, so we didn't even make it to the semi-finals. This year is different. Even if our captain doesn't make a move in the early stages, we can still make it to the semi-finals with proper treatment. The Almighty's hand was injured before. And it was still in the treatment period. As someone who had played dungeons with Qin Mo and got the first kill, Fujio really couldn't tell. Chapter 249. His hand was injured, but he could still use a killer move like 3000 knife cutting. If he wasn't injured, how good would he be? Sure enough. You can't look at the Almighty like a normal person. She was able to play the game well because of her natural hand speed and the fact that she had played the game before. But even so, she was still a distance away from the Almighty. If there was a chance, she could find a time to have a 1v1. Fujio thought of this, and something flashed in her mind. For example, the criminal psychology books that the Almighty left at home. She couldn't help but ask, why is Brother Mo's hand injured? This question made Lin Feng pause for a moment, because even he didn't know why his captain's hand was injured. I accidentally touched it. Qin Mo held his wine glass, and his voice sounded casual. With one hand in his pocket, it was easy for people to believe his words. But Fujio wasn't just anyone. After spending some time with him, she knew that the Almighty wasn't a careless person. As a captain of a professional team, the most important thing was one's hands. The Almighty wouldn't let himself get injured, unless it was unavoidable. Fujio thought of this, raised her head, and her eyes met Qin Mo's. It seemed like the Almighty had more secrets than she did. All right, that's not important. The most important thing is that we are together now, and we will be together in the future. Lin Feng shouted, drink this glass, and we will still be teammates in the next life. Of course, the team members would respond. Everyone had a smile on their faces as they raised their glasses and toasted each other. All the team members were taking care of Shui Yaoyao, asking her to drink less. Shui Yaoyao looked at this scene, and her heart was filled with warmth. Because of her figure and background, she wasn't popular in front of her classmates, especially in front of the guys. She had heard a lot of ugly and disgusting words, including the way that guy frowned when he found out that she had a crush on him. She had never been pampered like a princess. She had a single parent, and she had 2 younger brothers. She had done things that many people her age didn't do. She had tasted things that many people her age didn't. So, she learned to grow. Someone said, there are 3 stages of growth in a person's life. The first is when you realize that some things in this world won't go your way. The second is when you will be ridiculed and questioned no matter how hard you try. The third is when you know that you won't succeed, but you will still move forward bravely. She was glad that she had the courage of the third kind. Shui Yaoyao tilted her head and looked at the silver-haired young man who was picking meat for her. If she had not met this person, would she have been like many people who had been drowned in reality, without dreams and a life of mediocrity? She would have had no dreams and would have lived a mediocre life. She would have been ridiculed by others. Shui Yaoyao couldn't help but tilt her head and clink glasses with Fuzhou. Fuzhou didn't know what she was thinking. She chuckled and patted her head with her free hand. Girls shouldn't drink so much. Yao Yao really wanted to say, you're a girl too. Chapter 250. Team Flower. Fuzhou looked at Lin Feng's beautiful face and gave a very pertinent comment. She really suits you. You're prettier than the whole team combined. Lin Feng's tongue had already started to stiffen. Have you ever thought about how we feel about the only girl in our family? I think Yao Yao must be very happy to give you the title of Team Flower. Fuzhou was still smiling, looking very youthful. Shui Yaoyao didn't say anything because His Highness Zhou was the best looking. If he changed back to women's clothing, he would definitely be very stunning. At this moment, she was a little worried. If he became a member of the Supreme Alliance in the future, how long could he hide the fact that His Highness Zhou was a girl? Fuzhou saw her looking at him, so he turned his head and raised his eyebrows. What's wrong? Nothing. Shui Yaoyao just started to speak. Almighty Qin, who was sitting at the far end, was playing with the phone in his hand and walking towards them. Shui Yaoyao felt that this scene was familiar. But before she could remind His Highness Zhou, Almighty Qin leaned over and put one hand on the back of her chair. He smiled faintly and said in a deep and magnetic voice, Yao Yao, change seats. Shui Yaoyao paused. Her fingers were a little nervous. However, she was still very sensible. Besides, as a shipper fan of His Highness Zhou and Almighty Qin, she especially liked to see the two of them together. Hence, she gave up her seat without saying anything. Lin Feng was a little confused. Did he drink too much? Why did the captain take the initiative to go over there and sit with little Spade? Who would have thought that? Qin Mo didn't just sit down, he also pulled the young man very close to him and lowered his voice. What did I tell you? Ha! Fuzhou blinked and smiled. Yao Yao is a girl, it doesn't count. It's the same for men and women. Qin Mo's voice was very calm. In the team, the members are not allowed to date. If there is a problem, it will affect the performance of the game, so control your claws. Fuzhou smiled. Brother Mo, you can't do this. What if Yao Yao and I really fall in love in the future? Then I'll break your legs. When Chin-mo said this, his smile was very beautiful. It was enough to make any woman, except for Fujio, fall for him instantly. Other people couldn't hear what they were saying, but looking at their posture, it was enough to make people's jaws drop. Lin Feng rubbed his eyes hard. He felt that he had drunk too much and was hallucinating. What is Captain doing? The rest of the team members had complicated expressions on their faces. They felt that they couldn't see through their captain. Yes, they couldn't see through him at all. Fujio, on the other hand, was already used to it. Brother Mo, we just became teammates, and we will be participating in the National League together in the future. Don't make it so bloody. Breaking your leg won't affect your hand speed. You can still fight. With that, Chin-mo reached out and pulled the youngster up. He said to the team members, "I'll send him back. You guys can continue drinking, but don't forget to gather at the top floor of the company tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Everyone will fly to Tokyo for impromptu training. If you're 1 minute late, you'll have to do 10 push-ups." Chapter 251. It was extremely cold outside. It was winter in the north, and it had rained. After walking out, even breathing could produce a thin layer of white mist. Fujio only felt cold, but her left hand was still warm with someone holding it. Chin-mo walked a few steps and found that the young man wasn't wearing a jacket. He narrowed his deep eyes, took off his uniform, and put it on the young man. This was a sign that the danger was over. Fujio touched her belly. "I want some hot soup." Chin-mo was so angry that he laughed. "You're so disobedient, and you still want so much. As a big brother, shouldn't I give my little brother some rewards?" Fujio chuckled. "I won the competition and got first place as promised." Secretary Liang came out with these two, and after hearing their conversation, he could only look up at the sky silently. These two were too immersed in their roles. Big brother, little brother. Why did he only see ambiguity? Chin-mo looked behind him first. It was obvious that he didn't want Secretary Liang to follow him anymore. Secretary Liang was in a dilemma. CEO Chin had drunk alcohol, and it was easy for him to get drunk. If he left, something would happen between these two. What if CEO Chin turned gay? But if he didn't leave, he didn't have the guts to stay. In fact, Secretary Liang was thinking too much. Chin-mo simply didn't like people following him, especially with Secretary Liang's dirty eyes. It made him wonder if he had made a mistake in his judgment when he looked at Secretary Liang's work ability. After getting rid of the people following him, Chin-mo turned around and looked down at the young man. "What do you want to eat? Tell me, or people will think that I'm abusing you." Fujio was definitely a hotpot lover. Chin-mo looked at the time on his watch. Hotpot at this time. That's right, it's not realistic to eat hotpot at 11. Fujio thought about it and looked at a 24-hour convenience store not far away. "Let's go there, there must be food there. Instant noodles are good too, spicy and spicy." In fact, Chin-mo didn't really go to convenience stores like this, but since his little brother wanted to go, he wouldn't say no. Fujio was like a fish in water in a place like this, and she knew all the good food like the back of her hand. Chin-mo sat on a chair prepared for supper customers. He supported his face with one hand and glanced at the young man who was squatting next to him and picking things. His eyes gradually narrowed. The way he picked things didn't seem like he was a newbie. But, when did the young master of the Fu family, who had always been squandering money in Western restaurants and nightclubs, come to a convenience store? After Fujio picked out the instant noodles, she looked up and met the man's deep eyes. Her fingers paused for a moment, and the corners of her mouth curved into a smile. But she didn't say anything. She just took the things and went to pay the bill. He started to be on guard. He knew that he couldn't let his guard down when dealing with the Almighty. Experts in criminal psychology could easily analyze a person's behavior. After Fujio paid, she asked the cashier of the convenience store to pour hot water for her. The cashier was so excited that his hands were trembling. People who didn't know better would think that he was poisoning her. Finally, Fujio knew why his fingers were trembling. You're Spade Z, right? I've watched today's match live. Can you let Almighty Chin sign his name here? I'm a Chin fan. Everything was normal here. But the cashier's last sentence was, you and Almighty Chin are really compatible. Chapter 252. That cashier was obviously more excited because of his idol's approach, but he didn't dare to repeat what he had just said. After all, everyone knew that Almighty Chin didn't like to pair up with other people. Chin Mo wasn't that easy to fool. He knocked on the table with his fingers and laughed in a low voice. He said, I heard everything just now, but I don't know the details. What are you afraid of? It's not a big deal. That cashier obviously didn't understand Almighty Chin's two-faced ways. But Fujio, who had suffered a lot, knew. She put down the instant noodles and wanted to give the cashier a secret signal. But Chin Mo didn't give Fujio the chance. He reached out his hand and pulled the young man behind him. He said to the cashier in a domineering and pampering way, go on. The cashier looked at his idol's action and analyzed it. Based on his understanding of his idol over the years, if Almighty Chin didn't like someone, he wouldn't touch that person's hand. But now, not only did his idol touch it, but he was also flirting with it, so, the cashier let go of his worries and became excited. He took out his phone and flipped 2 pages for Chin Mo. This is a picture of Spade Z walking towards Almighty Chin when he won today. Everyone said that Almighty Chin and Spade Z are a good match. A good match. A good match. Chin Mo frowned, turned his handsome face, and looked at the picture on the phone screen with his deep eyes. The silver-haired young man raised his head and put his hand on Chin Mo's hand. His thin lips were still curled up, and he looked quite likable when he was smiling. He was handsome and gentle, not particularly rebellious. It was not easy for someone in puberty to be like this. Chin Mo took another look at the photo and didn't say anything. Instead, he glanced at Fujio and said in a casual tone, when did you start eating instant noodles? Fujio raised her eyebrows and laughed. Actually, I've always liked it. It's just that I used to pretend that I liked to eat big meals in front of outsiders. Instant noodles are too strong. Brother Mo, you won't mind, right? Her words were 30% false and 70% true. She had played cops and robbers for so many years, so she knew criminal psychologists very well. She knew the underlying problem behind every question. It wasn't that easy for the Almighty to blow her up. I won't. Chin Mo also knew that he couldn't trust this kind of answer, so he ordered a cup of coffee and returned to his original seat with the youngster. This series of actions made the cashier extremely excited. This was the first time that Almighty Chin had been paired with someone. Almighty Chin didn't refuse, although he frowned just now. But he didn't reject it. Did this mean that Almighty Chin didn't object to becoming a couple with Big Spade? Thinking of this, the cashier's eyes were filled with pink bubbles. Not to mention, when she looked at the two figures sitting together, she felt that there was a chance. The light rain outside the window had turned into a thin layer of snow, which was beautifully illuminated by the streetlights. This was rare in Rivertown. After all, smog was a common thing in the north. But after the snow, the weather became better. In the wee hours of the night, Fujio used to enjoy sitting in a 24-hour convenience store and looking out the window with her head propped up. Because the convenience store had a good view, she was able to observe everyone and then come up with a plan to attack so that she could retreat in time. Chapter 253. Qin Mo's low and cold voice rang in her ears. Fu Jiu looked up with a smile. Why do you think so, Brother Mo? This is the best view of the entire street. At the crossroads, the building is directly opposite, and the other two sides are very empty. There are no buildings blocking the way. Sitting here, you can have a panoramic view of the movements in all three directions. Generally, high IQ criminals like to blend in with the crowd like you and observe the surroundings as if nothing is happening. This is so that they can avoid being questioned by the police and not be noticed by anyone after they are done with their business. Qin Mo's expression was indifferent, making it hard to tell if he was serious or if he just wanted to chat about this topic. Fu Jiu looked at the steam coming from the instant noodles and put the plastic fork in her mouth. She smiled like an innocent teenager. Brother Mo, you've watched too many movies. How could criminals in real life be so smart? If they were, the rate of solving cases wouldn't be so low. After all, I can't even find my lost phone. Fu Jiu smiled and said, Brother Mo, you've watched too many movies. Any story that is presented in the form of art comes from real life. Qin Mo looked at Fu Jiu with his deep eyes. So be good next to me and don't let me get hold of any evidence, understand? Fu Jiu felt that the Almighty's good this time was completely different from before. It sounded like he was warning her. To be honest, she couldn't help but suspect that the Almighty let her enter the Supreme Alliance for the national competition and to keep an eye on her. In this case, it was indeed not easy to play dirty tricks. Fu Jiu was a little depressed. Why did she have to be wary of some people even if she was reborn 100 times? If she was unhappy, she would eat some instant noodles to calm herself down. Qin Mo didn't want Fu Jiu to think that he was too controlling as a brother. Even if he was in a good mood when he saw the young man's curled lips, he couldn't go too far. It's not convenient to contact you since you lost your phone. Fly to Tokyo tomorrow, and I'll ask Secretary Liang to choose one for you. Fu Jiu swallowed the noodles in her mouth. I'm just giving an example. I don't lack phones. Where did the Almighty learn to buy something for her whenever he disagreed with her? He must have looked up some strategy again. As if reading the young man's mind, Qin Mo suddenly laughed. Why? Aren't all the overbearing CEOs like this in the books you read? Yang is very handsome. Fu Jiu was caught off guard. Fu Jiu almost choked on her cold joke. She couldn't let the Almighty read such nonsense again. It was too toxic to learn and apply. But there was no one else other than the Almighty who could tell cold jokes in such a dignified manner. Fu Jiu tilted her head, and only then did she realize that the man had given her his coat. He was only wearing a thin cashmere sweater, and she couldn't tell if he was cold or not. His slender and fair fingers were holding a cup of coffee. It definitely wouldn't be warm. After all, in this weather, the 24-hour convenience store's heater wouldn't be enough at this hour. Fu Jiu thought for a moment and brought the noodles to Qin Mo's mouth. Qin Mo paused but didn't reject. In any case, the reason would not change. She was afraid that the youth in his rebellious phase would be too sensitive, and she had just warned him. Therefore, when the young man fed him noodles, he didn't avoid it. Chapter 254. As a single-dog cashier, he could only watch Almighty Qin turn his head and bite the noodles Big Spade fed him with his light-colored thin lips. His elegant and handsome side profile was revealed. At that moment, snow was falling from the window, and even the street lights seemed to become soft and beautiful. Both of them were extremely handsome, not only Almighty Qin, but also Spade Z, which made the picture look especially good. This was definitely a good match. A good match that couldn't run away. The cashier seemed to be telling everyone what he was feeling right now. So he raised his hand and secretly took a picture of the two of them without disturbing them. He posted it in the CP fans discussion post and added a comment. Almighty Chin and Big Spade came to our convenience store together, and they are eating instant noodles now. So this is the right way to eat instant noodles. It's so cute, and I can't help but share it with everyone. After posting it, the cashier said in his heart that he hoped Almighty Chin and the others wouldn't blame him. This scene was too exciting. As soon as the picture was posted, the whole page exploded. Hey! Noodles. Almighty Chin. Big Spade. No, I want to see it again. Almighty Chin has never eaten anything given to him by anyone. Last time when Coco gave him potato chips, he rejected them. So Almighty Chin absolutely loves my Big Spade. I just want to say that when I see the picture, my wolf blood is boiling. I hope the officials can release the merchandise soon. I want to buy a small album of Big Spade and Almighty Chin getting along. I don't care how much it costs. This is simply fulfilling the CP fans' dream. Don't tell me that Almighty Chin and Big Spade get along like this in private. I just want to say, single dogs are so cute, please don't mistreat them. I'm going to drink up this bowl of dog food. Is it a guy or a girl who posted this post? Please post more pictures. I think we shouldn't go too far. Almighty Chin might not want to be a CP with Big Spade. It's never bad to keep a low profile. That's right. Then let's just enjoy the CP post in silence and not post it. Otherwise, it won't be good if we get into trouble. These are the thoughts of true love fans. But there are so many people in the world, and we can never predict what the negative side of a matter will be. At this moment, someone who used to like Spade Z narrowed his eyes as he looked at the photo of the couple. She felt like she had been slapped in the face for mistaking Spade Z. Therefore, she felt that Spade Z's method of proving himself on the spot was too pretentious. He had to use this method to embarrass them. Had he ever considered the feelings of his true fans? Thus, he decisively turned from a fan to a hater. At the bottom of the post, he wrote, "You know that Almighty Chin doesn't want to see this kind of post, but you still posted it?" Was he delusional? I was puzzled. Why did Spade Z cause so much trouble as soon as he appeared? Did he go crazy from wanting to be famous? Did he tie himself to Almighty Chin to create hype? Have you asked Almighty Chin how he feels? And when she left this message, she didn't think that she was wrong. For her, this was the truth. The others were just too stupid to think that Spade Z was good in everything. Even the cashier who posted the photo explained to her, Almighty Chin saw this post, and he didn't feel any disgust at the time. Chapter 255. There was a rule on the official esports website. Fans could fantasize about who their idols were, but the official esports website was not the place to talk about this. The hottest topic of discussion here was the upcoming National League. Every team was focused on dealing with the situation. Even many of the commentators were focusing on each team's players and giving comments on them one by one. Such a meaningful analysis post was suddenly overshadowed by a CP post. Of course, it would cause dissatisfaction among people who only liked this game. Moreover, the CP post was still trending. Finally, someone couldn't help but speak up. Those who like Spade Z, please don't post here all the time, okay? Especially this kind of CP post. This is the official website of the national team, and there are other fans here. Can't you have some manners? The picture is good, but as a Chin fan, I just want to say that this kind of hype is a bit too much. I hope Spade Z's fans can stop. I won't comment on this matter now, because according to my understanding of Almighty Chin, he won't allow anyone to feed him noodles if he doesn't want to. But posting here is a mistake. Big Spade. Who is it? I've never heard of him. The FC King of Zone C, His skills are really good, but now it seems that his character, that Black used to like Spadesy very simply. She even bought a ticket to the selection contest just to watch Spadesy's game. She didn't expect to be treated like that. Since Spadesy didn't give her face, she had to expose this matter so that people could see what kind of person Spadesy was. The post was posted in the wee hours of the morning. It had to be said that this posting time was very advantageous. The official management wasn't here, and they must be sleeping after work at this late hour. Although the company had technicians on duty, managing the direction of the post was not within the scope of their work. The Supreme Alliance was still celebrating, and no one realized that a premeditated bloody storm was coming quietly. The next day, before the sun rose, Feng Yi received a phone call. Fortunately, he had woken up early that day. The members of the team were going to Tokyo for training, so he naturally had to tag along. Moreover, Feng Shang was going as well, so he was very awake when he picked up his phone. However, when he heard the contents of the call, his brows furrowed deeply. When was the post posted? 2:00 in the morning. Mr. Feng, should we communicate with the official website and apologize first? This post is really bad, especially since Spadesy is still a newcomer. It's not good for him to be so high profile. Mr. Feng, when you have time, let him manage his fans. It will be hard for us to deal with this situation. Chapter 256. When Feng Yi said these words, Feng Shang stood behind him. Initially, when he heard the first part, he was very angry and wanted to grab his brother's phone to say something. Until the end, he chose to quietly close the door and continue to tidy up his brother's luggage. Feng Shang had always thought that his brother was very powerful. But now, the pride in his heart had risen to another level because of Feng Yi's words. He was very glad that he had such an elder brother. Although he was in a high position and had to face a lot of material desires every day, he also had to deal with major advertisers, but he had never changed. What is right? If something were to happen, he would do everything that a manager should do to protect her. Previously, Almighty Qin had mentioned that Feng Yi had played a huge part in the Supreme Alliance's development. He did not understand at the time. Did they think that playing games was just a simple game? After getting to know his idol, after experiencing the esports selection contest, and after hearing the phone call today, he understood. The glory we see, there are too many people behind it, and they have given their all to support it. The storm caused by the post was still brewing. Since the person involved was Qin Mo, Feng Yi immediately changed his flight ticket after hanging up. This meant that he would stay in Jiang City and let the members who needed training head to Tokyo first. After arranging everything, the first number he dialed was Qin Mo. Feng Yi's style had always been efficient. Young Master Qin, there's a post here that you need to take a look at. After saying that, he sent the post over through the link. It had been almost 6 hours since the post was posted. Many people expressed their dissatisfaction. Are you kidding me? This is the National Esports official website, not a place for you to fantasize. Honestly, I used to want to see how good Spadesy was, but now, I'm not interested at all. Let me make it clear, Almighty Qin isn't someone who likes to copy couples. If you're trying to make fun of him, please don't bring him along. This post is obviously made by Spadesy's fan, what a pity. Spadesy is a guy, how can someone say that he and Almighty Qin are a couple? Don't they feel disgusted? I won't say anything else, just this post alone is enough to slander Spadesy for life. I'm speechless. How can this kind of person play esports? Supreme Alliance should consider replacing him. No matter how good his skills are, if he doesn't have a good character, it will obviously lower Supreme Alliance's standards. Greetings to Spadesy's entire family, bound to the hype. Due to the excessive scolding, some of the netizens' words were not displayed. When Chinamo saw this, his left hand that was still holding onto the suitcase's handle tightened his fingers, and the suitcase was thrown to the side. Dressed in his uniform, his gaze turned cold. He was like a devil from hell, his entire being filled with bloodlust. "Let me handle this." Feng Yi paused. "Boss Qin is here." Under normal circumstances, this kind of thing would be handled by the agent. He sent it to CEO Qin so that CEO Qin could find it. After all, he wasn't sure if young Master Qin was willing to be a couple like this. But now... Chapter 257. As an older brother. If he couldn't even provide the most basic protection, then he would be done for as an older brother. During the esports selection contest, he didn't do anything because the youngster wanted to solve the current problem by himself. But it was different this time. Beyond the technical level, he had to tell them who was protecting Fuzhou. The youngster was indeed cunning, and he hid his thoughts deeply. Up until now, he wasn't completely transparent in front of him. But he actually treated him as a younger brother. The youngster didn't do anything out of line. Yesterday, he just fed him noodles, but he was slandered to this extent. Then he would tell them whether he was willing to be a CP or not. Chinamo held his phone in his right hand and turned on the computer next to him with his left hand. A cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Yes. After Feng Yi recovered from the shock, he immediately took action. There was no need to think. Young Master Qin even said such words. It could be seen that young Master Qin did acquiesce to the CP issue. Although young Master Qin acquiesced to the CP issue, Feng Yi felt like the sky was raining red. It wasn't easy to see such a scene in his lifetime. After all, young Master Qin said that if he wanted him to play professional league, he should let him appear less in public. In other words, young Master Qin himself wasn't someone who liked being reported by the media. But according to young Master Qin, he was going to mobilize all of his background forces. Escapades' charm was indeed great. Young Master Qin never used his family background to oppress people easily. When young Master Qin first came out, he was also slandered badly. After all, with young Master Qin's character, he didn't want to communicate with his fans, so people could use it against him. Since there were fans of all ages, their thoughts must be different, so it was hard to control some things. At that time, young Master Qin was still as cold as he was now. When he saw someone slandering him, he didn't care about them and refreshed his ranking. He defeated countless professional players, and until now, he had become an existence that no one could easily shake in the esports scene. Did you just say that there was no more slandering? That was impossible. In the online world, as long as you became a public figure, there would be people who liked you and people who hated you. Even now, there would be people who looked down on young Master Qin's style. But what surprised him was young Master Qin's way of doing things. After all, he had always been indifferent to this kind of thing. He didn't expect that he would solve it so directly. It seemed like this incident had crossed young Master Qin's bottom line. But even Feng Yi didn't know why young Master Qin wanted him to register for Escapades' official Weibo. Through special means, the official Weibo authentication was usually fast. Moreover, Escapades was originally part of the Supreme Alliance, so it was even faster to get the authentication from the team. In less than half an hour, Feng Yi settled the matter and handed over the account and password to Chinamo. However, young Master Qin didn't log into the account. Instead, he said calmly, "Give the official Weibo to Z. What is my official Weibo account and password?" Feng Yi, although it was not the time to complain about this, but... Almighty, why did you ask me for the password for your official Weibo account? He had no choice. He knew that young Master Qin hadn't been on Weibo for a year, so he might have forgotten about it. As his manager, he could only send it to the Almighty again. Chapter 258. Once he logged into the official Weibo account, there were basically 10,000 private messages, forwards, and at Chin Mo didn't look at these things. Instead, he opened the post and found the picture of the two of them eating noodles together. Then he edited the text and posted the latest news. The noodles are not bad, mainly because the person who fed them is very pleasing to the eye. When Chin Mo posted this, he didn't forget to mention that Escapades official Weibo that Feng Yi had just registered for Fuzhou. There weren't many words, but it completely showed his stance. Not only did it show his stance, but it also showed that he didn't reject the speculation of this CP. Instead, he was very willing to be copied. He didn't use any tone, and even his words revealed his unique aloofness. But it was just this one message. It directly blasted all the Supreme Alliance members awake. What the F***CK, what's going on? Captain, no wonder you called Little Spade out alone yesterday. So you wanted Little Spade to treat you to instant noodles. Lin Feng was the first to forward the post. His repost further proved that the reason why the two of them were alone yesterday was because of the captain's initiative. It wasn't like the rumor that Spade Z was trying to create hype. Sorry, our Supreme Alliance is the most tightly knit. Don't even think about taking advantage of the loopholes. After Lin Feng posted, Yunhu immediately followed up. Captain is going crazy because someone important was hurt. Coco and Fatty, who were preparing to register at the southern airport, were next. Although they didn't know what was going on, they had no idea what was happening. Although they didn't know what exactly happened, they had 100% trust in their captain, Boss Qin. Everyone in the Supreme Alliance was reposting Qin Mo's Weibo. Once again, people witnessed the strong and unbreakable cohesion of this young team. In fact, as soon as Qin Mo posted, Weibo exploded. What the F***CK, I also wanted to ask Lin Feng what happened. Almighty Qin actually posted on Weibo. And it was such a warm post. I was so excited that I wanted to run 2 laps. Almighty Qin's side profile is so handsome. I'm drunk again. I didn't expect to see Almighty Qin post on Weibo in my lifetime. As a Qin fan, I can die in peace. But what did Almighty Qin mean by this? Those who only cared about the competition were confused. I know. Please share the drama. Didn't someone on the official side make a CP post? The people who replied scolded Spade Z badly, saying that he was forcing Almighty Qin to copy the CP. They even said that he was sticking to Almighty Qin, but now it seems like that's not the case. Almighty Qin's words, no matter how I look at it, it seems to be saying that my people are not to be touched. Is this what it means? The CP fans also thought that Almighty Qin meant the same thing. But after the post, they knew that if they continued to say that Spade Z and Almighty Qin were a couple, it would definitely arouse the ire of others. Therefore, they did not make a sound at this time. This was all thanks to an organization of true fans. The true fan had always been an executive who knew about the internet. She was a fujoshi, and she was already old. She had long passed the age of chasing idols and playing games. She dealt with business matters every day. When she first saw Spade Z, she simply felt that this youngster was not bad. But ever since she saw him playing and how he protected north of Een Mountain, she had become more and more annoyed. Unknowingly, she took a few more glances at the youngster until the video popped up when she searched for Spade Z. She had completely turned from a passerby into a fan. Chapter 259. Sometimes, the older you get, the more you miss your younger self. This true love fan was also from an ordinary family, so she understood the bitterness of being born into an ordinary family. When she was young, she had vowed to be a great person. But when she grew up, she realized that there were too many unsatisfactory things in life. She was splashed with dirty water, and she couldn't complain when she was hurt. She always thought that the wound could only be healed after success. In fact, when did she forget the justice she had been waiting for? A youngster who would say something like that was definitely not someone who would tie someone up to copy the CP. She didn't know why there were still people who couldn't understand such simple logic. But she couldn't force anyone. When the wave of comments came out yesterday, she knew something was going to happen. Spade Z was a newcomer. Without understanding Spade Z, too many fans would turn against him under the instigation. This was the most harmful part of this matter. As far as she was concerned, the person who posted might not really like Spade Z, and might even be trying to blacken him. But she couldn't say such words. Once she said it, it would only make the youngster more blackened. The only way was to hug all the True Love fans tightly, especially the CP fans. So as soon as Almighty Chin posted on Weibo, this True Love fan sent out the most sincere call in the CP building. If you really like Big Spade, control yourself, because a word of abuse at this time will not only lower our quality, but also bring more hate to Big Spade. Now that Almighty Chin has posted on Weibo, we can only forward it and like it, without any comments, and wait for further official news. Agreed. I'll forward it now. After all, if it wasn't for our imagination, Big Spade wouldn't have been labeled as a hype. I've learned my lesson and will definitely respond to the call of the original poster. I won't say much, just one sentence: I believe in Big Spade. Wait a minute, the group is organizing a siege. I'm a little confused now. Who should I listen to? The True Love fan sister was a person with work experience, and after seeing this question, she directly attacked the pros and cons. Is there Big Spade in the group? Or is that group officially authenticated? I don't think so. After reading it, the true fan replied, I can understand how everyone wants to protect Big Spade, but any existence without official certification is blind to a certain extent. In this situation, before Almighty Chin posted on Weibo, Big Spade had already been slandered to death. Now that the situation has finally changed, what we need to do is to support Almighty Chin, not to create unnecessary trouble at this time. I repeat, if you are a true fan, repost Almighty Chin's Weibo with me, and then we will wait for further official news. Alright. I believe you. This was a gamble. In this game, it was fortunate that reason prevailed. As a result, a huge wave of support appeared on Weibo. Everyone, regardless of gender, would add a Z logo when they reposted Chin Mo's post. It was this effective and sensational support that sped up Feng Yi's follow-up work. Originally, he was worried that young Master Chin's Weibo post would cause Little Spade's fans to lose their cool and start a war of words. Chapter 260. The support measures on Weibo were obviously the work of a veteran. So Feng Yi didn't have to worry about public relations. Because no matter how useful public relations was, it couldn't compare to a true fan. The premise was that this true fan had to be rational enough. After this storm, Feng Yi felt that Little Spade would be very popular in the future. Because there were thousands of true fans. But there weren't many true fans who could see the situation clearly and put themselves in their idol's shoes. Just like how it wasn't easy for young Master Chin to have a true fan like him. That's right. Our manager Feng was a fan-turned-manager. When so many people said that Chin Mo only knew how to show off, he believed that the youngster had the capital to be cold. There were too many tricks in esports nowadays. Some people didn't mind buying rotten eggs or lowering their heads to their fans in order to attract fans. But too many people forgot that as long as you could play the game well and didn't do anything that challenged the bottom line of morality, this spirit should be the most important. He still remembered that when he first took young Master Chin in, young Master Cheen told him, "I'm in charge of playing the game well, you're in charge of making the team more famous and then breaking into the national finals." For a club that focused on esports, both aspects were indispensable. But what about fans? Don't we need fans? At that time, he even advised young Master Cheen, "Believe me, sometimes we don't need to do anything to protect fans." But at that time, young Master Cheen only replied, "Everyone who likes esports knows what they like. I'm an esports player, how to play the game well is what I should do. Although protecting fans can indeed make me popular faster, that's not what I want. In this world, there are things that are earned through hard work. In this world, there are things that are earned through hard work." Because of this sentence, he stayed in the Cheen group until now, even though young Master Cheen was injured that year and Supreme Alliance didn't win the championship. He was also willing to do so. Perhaps it was because he was getting old. Once he saw the storm on the internet, he thought of the past. Or perhaps Little Spade was really similar to young Master Cheen in some aspects, which made him feel hot-blooded again. After looking at Weibo, Feng didn't have any misgivings and went straight to the person in charge of esports. Of course, he wouldn't ask for the poster's registration information. It was illegal, and he wouldn't let anyone search for the poster. In fact, from his point of view, this was a typical case of a fan turning anti-fan. What he needed to do now was to find a loophole in the post and force her to apologize and delete the post. That was the best way to protect Little Spade. So Feng Yi asked 3 questions under the post. 1. Are you a fan of Little Spade or an anti-fan? A true fan wouldn't have come to the official platform to create such a post for Little Spade. 2. If you are a fan, why didn't you delete the post when someone mentioned that posting here is disrespectful and will make everyone hate Little Spade even more? 3. Maybe you didn't notice, but after you posted the photo, 10 minutes later, you followed the thread on the 73rd floor and speculated whether Little Spade was using Almighty Cheen to create hype. This kind of behavior clearly showed that you weren't a fan. Chapter 261. Such a strong statement. It directly shocked all the onlookers. Then something even more shocking came out. It was Cheen Mo's second Weibo post. That's right. Almighty Cheen, who was over 100 years old, actually posted 2 Weibo posts in one day. If we regard the first rule as protecting one's own shortcomings, then the second rule comes straight to the point. Anyone who slandered Spade Z will be held responsible. Instantly, his official Weibo was blown up. That true fan thought it would take a few days of hard work to completely reverse the current situation. But now young Master Cheen said this. He was clearly telling everyone, "I'll beat whoever plays with Spade Z." This time, the CP fans couldn't bear it anymore. The whole screen was flooded with comments. "I just want to say that I want to see the picture of my big Spade feeding Almighty Cheen noodles again. Almighty Cheen, are you sure you aren't giving us CP fans candy? After yesterday, I'll drink this bowl of dog wolf again." It was nothing at first. But unexpectedly, Almighty Cheen replied to one of the comments, "Yes, candy." He admitted it. Almighty Cheen admitted it himself, who would dare to go back on his words. No one would say that Spade Z maliciously kidnapped Almighty Cheen to create hype. The post was also dug out. A black-haired CP post. Everyone was confused at first, but now they were awakened by the questions. Plus, Cheen Mo's second Weibo post. Both Spade fans and Cheen fans began to ask the person who posted to apologize and delete the post. When the national competition was coming, as fans, they only hoped that their idol could fight in perfect condition. It wasn't just the fans of these 2 teams, even the fans of the other teams felt that justice was owed to Spade Z. At this time, the young man who was the topic of the discussion had just finished packing his luggage. There was no other way. There were too many candies and instant noodles, and there was a nagging housekeeper behind her, which directly affected Fujio's efficiency. Young master, I have to go with you. What if you really want to sleep with Almighty Chin? If I'm here, I can at least stop you. Fujio yawned, and her silver hair curled up. Even if you're here, I can still sleep with Brother Mo if I want to. What's more, it's to Tokyo. Who's paying for the ticket? I'll pay for it. Chen Xiaodong puffed out his chest. I won't spend a single cent. How about it? Fujio picked up her black leather suitcase. It's not much, because I need money for everything. You're a pro player, so you should have this. Chen Xiaodong was about to cry. Moreover, Madam's company has been doing very well these past 2 days, so she doesn't have time to take care of you. She specifically told me to take good care of young master. Fujio chuckled. Stay at home and don't let your imagination run wild. That's the best you can do for me. Young master, you are mocking me. Fujio tidied up her silver hair in front of the mirror and raised her pretty eyebrows. You can still understand what I mean. Not bad. Chen Xiaodong, just as Fujio pushed away the clingy butler and was about to leave for the airport, her phone rang in her pocket. It was Shui Yao Yao. Fujio put one hand in her pocket and curled up her lips. Yao Yao. I'll be there in a moment. Chapter 262. Weibo. Fujio slept late last night and didn't wake up early either. She started packing her things as soon as she opened her eyes, preparing for the training in her best condition. She didn't even have a Weibo account. How could she be tagged? But hearing Shui Yao Yao's voice, Fujio knew something was up. She took out her new laptop and turned it on with one hand. I'm going to register for Weibo. Shui Yao Yao was confused. Register? No need, Boss Feng has already set up Weibo for us. Everyone's phone number is locked and authenticated, so Your Highness Zhou, you can just log in with your phone number. As for the password, Boss Feng should have already sent it to you. Fujio tilted her head and looked at her phone screen. There is indeed an unread message. I'll hang up first. See you at the airport. Okay. After Shui Yao Yao hung up, she didn't put down her phone immediately. Instead, she paid attention to Weibo on the way to the airport. Fujio held the laptop in one hand and the suitcase in the other. She didn't waste any time getting in the car. After getting in the car, she turned on the internet hotspot on her phone and logged into Weibo. As soon as she logged in, the first thing she saw were countless ads. Fujio put her left hand against the window and opened those ads with her right hand. Such a blood-boiling scene happened so early in the morning. Has Almighty Chin recognized her as his CP? Thanks to Spade Z, at least he made my idol post on Weibo twice in one day. I want to know how Spade Z will respond now. Spade Z must be shy from Almighty Chin's protection. But I still want a Spade Z. Spade Z too. Little Spade, the Almighty is asking you to eat noodles. Keep it ing. I'll let him too. There had never been a situation like this. An esports player's topic actually appeared in the top 10 searches, and it was still gaining popularity without any signs of dying down. Only popular idols could enjoy such treatment. But now, everything proved that Chin Mo and Fujio were undoubtedly popular in the esports circle. There were too many people tagging Fujio. Fujio didn't see Chin Mo tagging her at first, but when she clicked on Almighty Chin's homepage, she saw nice face, mainly because he looks good. Also, I will hold anyone who slandered Spade Z accountable. These were the two Weibo posts. To be honest, Fujio had never been protected like this in both of her lives. His beautiful thin lips unconsciously rose a little, but he was also very clear that there must be a reason for such a phenomenon. Soon, she found the cause. After seeing the post, Fujio's eyes darkened, but she didn't hack the person who posted it. Very simply, this kind of person was not worth her trouble here. That person kept saying that she used to like Spade Z, and that she did this because Spade Z's style disappointed her. She apologized for the post, but she would never like Spade Z again. All of this, Fujio only left one sentence on the post. I play games, not my style. I'm not begging anyone to like me. The existence of this post is disrespectful to other teams. You can hate me if you want, it doesn't matter. Chapter 263. The person being fed looks more pleasing to the eye, moi. The last sentence made the entire Weibo explode. Especially this message from Fujio. Fujio retweeted Chin Mo's previous Weibo post, and there was even a picture of him feeding her noodles. Chin Mo was indeed very handsome in that picture. His noble and indifferent handsome face was tilted to the side, and there was even a slight smile at the corner of his mouth, which was very rare to see. His slender fingers held Fujio's wrist. His face was fine, and his eyes were deep and beautiful. In fact, if one was a real Chin fan, they would definitely be able to see how much Almighty Chin indulged the young man who raised his eyebrows and smiled wickedly when he fed him noodles. Spade Z had never posted anything on his official Weibo, which meant that this was the first message Fujio had posted on Weibo. The moment it was sent out, the number of replies below the message exceeded 10. In less than a minute, it broke 100 again. Moi. Are you flirting? As expected of my Big Spade. The girl who posted the post to diss Big Spade, what an embarrassing slap to her face. Big Spade doesn't seem to care about her. Of course not, Big Spade only has eyes for Almighty Chin. Before I saw this Weibo post, I always thought that Almighty Chin was the one and only strong attacker in my mind. Now I have to re-examine this CP relationship. Who is the attacker and who is the victim? My Big Spade is the attacker. Alright, this is the first time I've ever been a reverse CP, very good, this is Big Spade. Almighty Chin has never been teased like this before, moi. I just want to say 3 words, mwax. Follow me downstairs, mwax. Chin Mo's screen was flooded with kisses, but he saw the reply he wanted to see the most. He knew how good a certain someone was at flirting. However, when he heard the young man's words, he couldn't help but smile, and the coldness in his eyes dissipated quite a bit. He unlocked his phone and replied, "Where are you?" Spade Z, on the way to the airport, where's brother Mo? Same, wait for me at departure tower 1. Spade Z, okay. Just like that, the two of them chatted on Weibo unscrupulously. There was simply no one else like this dog wolf. The fans screamed out loud below the stage. Wait a minute, Big Spade is going to travel with Almighty Chin. It can't be a vacation, right? I heard Supreme Alliance is going to Tokyo for training, it's reliable news. But it's so cute to be at the airport. I can already imagine my Big Spade waiting for Almighty Chin at the airport with a suitcase. It's so cute. There must be a lollipop in his mouth, definitely. Wait for Almighty Chin's little spade, heh, the fans were right. Fujio was indeed waiting for Almighty Chin, but she didn't pull the suitcase. Instead, she sat on the suitcase, holding the boarding pass she had just changed into. She had already been to Tokyo. As a hacker, she promised to buy some things in the world's most developed electronic city. This time, the team was moving as a team, so they subconsciously looked forward to it. Overall, Fujio was quite relaxed. Qin Mo alighted from the Hummer, his left hand pulling the suitcase, his right hand holding his phone. The moment he walked into the airport, he saw the youngster in this state. Chapter 264. Qin Mo curled his thin lips, lifted his legs, and walked over. He patted the young man's head and said calmly, "Let's go." Fu Jiu glanced at Qin Mo's suitcase. "So little. What else do I need to bring besides toiletries and sheets?" Qin Mo asked as he waited for his boarding pass. Fu Jiu was still sitting on the suitcase. Every time Qin Mo walked, she moved forward with her legs and smiled handsomely. "Clothes. Don't forget we have to stay in Tokyo for 3 days. We can buy them when we get there." Qin Mo took the boarding pass. Seeing that the young man was sitting on the suitcase, he pushed it with one hand so that he could walk forward. Hearing the Almighty's words, Fu Jiu suddenly felt that her identity as a rich person was too shabby. "If you don't even bring clothes, why would you bring sheets?" Qin Mo glanced back at the young man, and his attitude was very cold. No matter how high-end a hotel is, the bed is never clean. This is common sense. Fu Jiu. She felt like she was being mocked again. Qin Mo didn't let the young man walk by himself, nor did he bend over. He just pushed the suitcase with one hand and handed the boarding pass and ID card to the young man with the other. That scene was so cute that it was no wonder that the girls on the plane wanted to take a picture of it. But every time the girl raised her phone, the young man would look at her. She could only shout that he was handsome and her heart was beating fast, so she didn't do it in the end. But some Jiang City local gamers saw that Almighty Qin and Fu Jiu were coming to the airport on Weibo, so they all rushed over to capture them on the spot. Unfortunately, they were too slow. When they arrived at the airport, the two men had already passed the security check. From afar, they saw Lin Feng holding a coffee and talking to Yun Hu next to him. There was also Uncle Ian and Shui Yaoyao standing next to him. The Supreme Alliance was required to wear the team uniform. They stood together at the boarding gate, wearing the same jacket with the Supreme Alliance logo on the back. Just like that, it became a special scene in the airport. The wives who were going to Tokyo to shop and travel had already turned back to look at them several times. When Fu Jiu and Qin Mo walked over together, they couldn't help but ask, "What are they doing?" "Dancing stars. They look like the posters in my girl's house." "You're uncultured again. That's called a Korean group." Yes, that's the word. A Korean group." As the aunties spoke, they secretly sized up Fu Jiu. "This young man is handsome, the type my daughter likes." "What's the use of that? No matter how good-looking he is, he's not from China." Fu Jiu heard this and smiled. "Auntie, I'm Chinese. We're not a Korean group, we're an esports team." "Esports team?" The aunties were all confused, indicating that they had never heard of it. But Fu Jiu's answer amused them, and they pulled Fu Jiu along to ask her again. Since she was waiting for her turn, Fu Jiu sat there and chatted with the group of ants. This made the other members of the team feel helpless. I realized that this kid, from the age of 48 to the age of 8, can instantly become his fan. How can he chat so happily with the aunties? Lin Feng clicked his tongue. I was worried that Little Spade would be affected after reading Weibo, but it seems like it's nothing. Chapter 265. Lin Feng chuckled. "Are you sure he's in a good mood and not flirting with the aunties? How on earth did he compliment an auntie for looking like she was 18? Yun Hu tilted his head and studied him for a long time. Lin Feng took a sip of coffee, furious. That auntie is going to invest in him. But I don't even have a girlfriend. Yun Hu fiddled with the boarding pass. This has nothing to do with words, it has to do with looks. Forget about your face. While the team members were still exchanging thoughts, Chin Mo pulled the bewitching youngster back to the team. Familiarize yourself with the hotel address for the last time. Feng Yi will stay in China to deal with the aftermath. Secretary Liang will take over his work. For the next 3 days, you can look for him if you encounter any problems. Coco and Fatty had already boarded the plane. Now, check your watch and pass. Chin Mo came from the military compound and had always done things in a military style. Once he spoke, everyone obeyed without any noise. After everything was arranged, the Supreme Alliance officially boarded the plane. 3 days of training and 1 East China international friendly match. The most important was the latter. In Feng Yi's words, the opponent was very strong. During last year's training, they had completely suppressed Supreme Alliance. Moreover, they had recruited a new player king this year and had a high number of first kills on the Tokyo national server. If the current Supreme Alliance couldn't even beat the opponent, they wouldn't be qualified to participate in the National League. In other words, this was a competition to test their qualifications. If they won, Supreme Alliance would receive countless cheers. If they lost again, even if Almighty Qin was there, it would definitely damage their reputation. Most importantly, only people who were familiar with League of Legends knew that if they wanted to be recognized by more people, especially those around them, they had to prove that they weren't playing games as people said, eating and waiting for death, achieving nothing. Translator's thoughts. Uni editor. Most importantly, only people who were familiar with League of Legends knew that if they wanted to be recognized by more people, especially those around them, they had to prove that they weren't playing games for nothing. This was Shui Yaoyao's first time taking a plane. From the moment they took off, she couldn't calm down. She could see the endless clouds from the window seat. She didn't tell anyone that this trip to Tokyo caused many people to criticize her. She lived in a courtyard house and there would always be people visiting. The benefits of playing a game are so good. It must be a lie. Forget it. Just let her dream. She just doesn't like the job I introduced to her. She thinks we are harming her. This child is so immature. She doesn't even look at her own condition. I won't persuade her anymore. Do what you want. She will regret it in the future. Shui Yaoyao knew that a selection contest couldn't change ordinary people's views. If a real normal person knew that you were playing in a professional team, the first thing they would say to you would be, "If you're so good, why aren't you on TV?" At times like this, she would always be speechless. Shui Yaoyao knew that if she wanted to prove herself, she had to participate in the National League. Because only by standing on the national stage would those people shut up. In fact, even Fu Jiu was the same. Most people in the school would not care about a small selection contest. National competition, Shui Yaoyao wasn't the only one who wanted to go. Yin Wuyao, Feng Shang, Lin Feng, Yun Hu, and all the other team members treated that place as their dream. He wanted to prove that he was not old. He wanted to prove that he could play the game well even if he stuttered. Chapter 266. Jiang City was the capital of China, so it wasn't far from Tokyo. Even though it was an international flight, it only took 4 hours to reach Tokyo. But in just a short 4 hours, the sleepy Fu Jiu put on the eye mask provided by the airline after she got on the plane. She adjusted her seat and tilted her head. Her silver hair fell on the eye mask, and the contrast between the black and white areas was beautiful. Qin Mo arranged the youngster beside him to prevent him from flirting with others. But after seeing Fu Jiu being so obedient, he inexplicably softened his face. When the air stewardess walked over, he put down the magazine and said, "Please bring me a blanket." The air stewardess looked at Qin Mo and blushed. Even though she had seen many handsome guys, it was rare to see one with such a deep and magnetic voice. But obviously, Qin Mo's attention wasn't on the air stewardess at all. No matter how sweet her smile was, he only took the blanket and looked at the youngster's sleeping face. When he turned to the side, he was even closer to the youngster. Qin Mo only paused for a moment and pulled his hand back. But this time, he wasn't reading the business magazine because the youngster tilted his head and put it on his shoulder. Qin Mo frowned and didn't push him away. It was probably because there was a person sleeping next to him. Qin Mo was affected as well. 10 minutes later, he fell into a light sleep as well. Lin Feng didn't turn his head. He wanted to give Little Spade a beef burger, but he saw such an intimate scene. He opened his mouth wide and was stunned for a while. Then, he turned back and asked Yunhu, "Do you think Captain would give himself to Little Spade in order to win the National League?" "You can ask Captain yourself." Yunhu threw this sentence at him and put on the eye mask, ready to sleep. Lin Feng muttered, "How would I have the guts to ask him myself? I'm not stupid." But it seems that Captain treats Little Spade exceptionally well. Captain took him as his little brother. Now that things have come to this is the only explanation I can give. Lin Feng quickly accepted it. "I see. Then it makes sense." Secretary Liang sat beside him and raised his head to look at the cabin. What kind of communication was that? How could they be brothers? However, he would rather be thinking too much. After all, Boss Qin grew up alone. It wasn't strange for him to protect someone he liked and was younger than him. But when he thought of the conversation on Weibo today, Secretary Liang wasn't sure again. Madam and the rest had not returned to China yet, but once they did, they would definitely ask about this matter. Right now, he could only hope that the situation would change when he arrived in Tokyo. After all, he would be able to bump into Miss Lioli's team this time. When Fujio woke up, she took off her blindfold and felt the glare of the sun, which meant that the plane was descending. Qin Mo woke up earlier than him. When he saw the youngster open his eyes, he pointed at his shoulder and smiled coldly. "It's all your saliva. What do you think I should do?" "I'll give you my uniform." Fujio smiled at Qin Mo, sat up straight, and pretended to take off her coat. "As long as Brother Mo doesn't mind my dirty clothes." Qin Mo lifted his thin lips. "Don't use this method. When we reach the hotel, wash the clothes." Fujio. Chapter 267. The Supreme Alliance's hotel was in the center of Tokyo, which was known as the city with the most advanced electronic technology in the world. Here, they didn't discriminate against esports games or voice actors. They chose this place to train so that the team members could better integrate into the environment. The streets were very clean, and the people walking back and forth were all speaking Japanese, which made people feel like they were in a manga world. But when they arrived at the hotel lobby, there was a very awkward problem. No matter how rich the Supreme Alliance was, they only booked a double standard room for 2 people. It was impossible for each person to stay in one room. After hearing this news, Fujio raised her eyebrows and squinted her beautiful eyes, but her expression didn't change. After the incident at the convenience store, she already knew how good this god was at analyzing people, so she didn't stand up to speak immediately. But when Shui Yao looked up, her heart skipped a beat. 2 people sleeping in one room for 3 days. What about His Highness Joe? No matter who she slept with, it wouldn't be very convenient, right? What if her secret was found out? Thinking of this, Shui Yao looked in Fujio's direction. Fujio was also looking at her. Her fingers moved a little, but it was very small. Shui Yao was a smart girl. She turned her eyes and said to Secretary Liang, "I'm timid, and I don't dare to sleep alone. Can you arrange for me to sleep with His Highness Joe? We are familiar with each other, and I trust His Highness Joe." This sudden suggestion made all the team members put down their luggage and look at her in astonishment. Sister Yao Yao wanted to share a room with Little Spade. Man and woman in the same room. So open. Even Qin Mo's left hand, which was holding the room card, paused for a second. When he raised his eyebrows, he was already a little cold. Feng Shang stuttered even harder. What did you say? You let my idol sleep with you." Lin Feng also had a naughty smile on his face. "Sister Yao, you can do it. You can do whatever you want with Little Spade. You can even kiss him." Shui Yao Yao's cute apple face turned red, but she didn't back down on this issue. She just didn't know what to say. Fu Jiu walked over with one hand in her pocket and the other on Shui Yao Yao's shoulder. She smiled and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Sister Yao needs to find a boyfriend in the future, but she's really afraid of the dark. Even if she's afraid of the dark, a girl's reputation will be affected if a man and a woman live together." Qin Mo walked over and interrupted the youngster with a cold voice. Fu Jiu smiled. "I agree with this, so please take care of little Sister Yao and find a beautiful woman to sleep with her. As for me, I'll share a room with my baby Feng." Fu Jiu turned her head and winked at Feng Shang with her left eye. Feng Shang was overjoyed. Just as he was about to speak, "The room is ready. You and I will share a room." Qin Mo's presence at this moment gave people an indescribable sense of oppression. It was obvious that he was talking to Fu Jiu. Feng Shang panicked. I'll trade with Almighty Qin." Qin Mo laughed softly, turning back to look at Feng Shang. His deep gaze was especially gentle, but his words were cold. "Second young master, I can guide your idol in gaming, can you?" Chapter 268. I. With his skill level, he really couldn't guide his idol in gaming. Feng Shang stuttered and couldn't retort at all. From his perspective, he felt that Almighty Qin was being a bit shameless, using this kind of thing to pressure him. How could an Almighty compete with a newbie like him? But it was obvious that Qin Mo was embarrassed. The National League is around the corner. Your idol is the rookie king of the Qin group. If he doesn't show some results, he will embarrass the Supreme Alliance. Fu Jiu heard this and expressed that she was the main character. "I can practice in my room. It's just leveling up, no problem." "Are you sure you're leveling up and not flirting?" Qin Mo lifted the corners of his lips, his voice faint. "I've already destroyed your credibility. Don't talk so much nonsense, take your luggage and follow me upstairs." Fu Jiu roughly knew that once the Almighty had decided on something, no one else could change his mind. And it was true that before they came, the Almighty did say that he wanted to give her a private room, but he never said that they were going to sleep in the same room. If she slept in the same room with anyone, she was confident that she could completely hide it from the other party. But to sleep in the same room with a god, as someone who studied criminal psychology, she wasn't sure what kind of tricks the god would suddenly throw at her. What? Unwilling. Qin Mo stopped in his tracks. With his luggage in his hands, he turned back and looked at her with a faint smile. There was no warmth in his eyes. Fu Jiu insisted, "I'll share a room with Feng Shang. I'll ask Brother Mo for guidance later." Qin Mo took a deep look at Fu Jiu, and his voice turned cold. "Up to you." Then, he turned around in an extremely cold manner. Although Fu Jiu knew that her two rejections were hurtful, living with the Almighty was indeed dangerous. The members of Supreme Alliance stood there, not daring to speak. After all, the chill emanating from their captain was too obvious. It was so obvious that even someone as slow as Lin Feng could feel the chill on his neck. After Qin Mo left, Lin Feng opened his mouth and patted Fu Jiu's shoulder. "Little Spade, Big Brother admires you. You have to know that no one has ever rejected Captain. You are the first. It's all because Feng Xiang wants to sleep with me. Fujio smiled as she glanced in the direction where Qin Mo had disappeared. I'm afraid that if I don't hold on, he will cry. Student Feng. He really isn't that weak. But to be able to sleep with my idol is really too happy. The pajamas he was wearing today were also very handsome. Wearing it, he could lie together with his idol and climb the ladder in his pajamas. He could also give his snacks to his idol. And the gold coins in the game. Student Feng was especially excited. Shui Yaoyao looked at Fujio worriedly. Fujio gave her a reassuring look. Baby Feng was too careless to notice anything. Feng Xiang really didn't notice anything. He only felt that being able to be so close to his idol in this life was like a pie falling from the sky. Secretary Liang followed Qin Mo into the elevator, so he was the one who felt the coldness the most. Looking at Boss Qin's handsome face, which had obviously turned cold, he really didn't dare to say a word. Qin Mo looked at the number on the elevator indifferently, as though nothing had happened. Chapter 269. He probably didn't expect to be rejected. So once something like this happened, it always made people uncomfortable. Qin Mo narrowed his eyes dangerously. It was very uncomfortable. Secretary Liang was very nervous and didn't dare to say anything. After getting out of the elevator, his phone rang and saved his life. Looking at the tall and noble figure in front of him, Secretary Liang heaved a sigh of relief. He adjusted his breath and said very gently, Miss Lioli, yes, we are here. Yes, we are still in the hotel. There is no need for lunch. Boss Qin seems a little tired. They're all here for training. Sure, I'll bring them over in the afternoon. After Secretary Liang finished speaking, he met Qin Mo's cold eyes. He hurriedly explained, Vice President Feng has already arranged the schedule beforehand. The two teams will train together. Qin Mo entered the room and tugged at the collar of his jacket. His voice was cold. That was in the past. Now that the team has a new member, we'll change it tomorrow. Yes. Secretary Liang also knew that their CEO didn't like to interact with girls, but if he didn't interact with them, he would turn gay. On the other side, Baby Feng was still excited. He looked at Fujio with a red face. Oh idol, which bed do you want to sleep on? Me. Fujio lowered her head and threw her school bag away. She looked very handsome. Either is fine. Baby Feng was very serious. Then I choose to go outside. Bad guys come. I can still protect my idol. Fujio raised her eyebrows and whistled at Feng Xiang. No matter how you look at it, you are the one being protected, right? Baby Feng. He was speechless. That idol, you and Almighty Qin, what happened to you two? Student Feng Xiang is still very sensitive in certain areas. Fujio turned her head and laid on the bed with her long legs slightly crossed. Nothing, I'm fine. Then, why don't you sleep with Almighty Qin? Why do you want to sleep with me? Feng Xiang's intuition tells me that there's something wrong with this. With the lollipop in her mouth, Fujio lowered her head and unzipped it. You didn't ask for it. Although it's my request, but it's still not right. Thinking about this, Feng Xiang smiled. Is it true that my idol likes me more than Almighty Qin? Baby Feng, you're thinking too much. Almighty Qin is too handsome. I'm afraid that if we stay together at night, I won't be able to resist sleeping with him. What if he beats me up? How inappropriate. Did this mean that he had no value in sleeping with her? Feng Shang was unconvinced. I'm not bad looking. That's true. Fu Jiu agreed. But even if I sleep with you, you will only be suppressed. You won't be able to beat me, so it's relatively safer. Feng Shang was speechless. Why was he always the one being suppressed? Unhappy. There's a message in the WeChat group. Fu Jiu glanced sideways at the phone screen. Gather downstairs in an hour. We're going to the training center. After reading this sentence, Fu Jiu looked up and smiled lightly. All right, let's pack up. We're going to meet the friendly team in a bit. I heard they're all girls. Chapter 270. Fu Jiu stopped playing with the rhythm master. She looked up and replied slowly, Lin Feng, believe me, as long as Brother Mo is around, you don't need to care about how cool you are. Even if you are as beautiful as a fairy, you will only attract men. Girls won't look at you. Lin Feng. This was a critical hit. Yunhu followed behind him and gave Fu Jiu a thumbs up, giving her a thumbs up. Fu Jiu was still wearing a black mask when they gathered downstairs. The weather in Tokyo wasn't that warm. In Jiang City, the mask could prevent the smog, and it could keep her warm outside. Those guys from the Supreme Alliance looked like they had just taken a shower. Their hair must have been blown by the wind. Even Uncle Ian had put a lot of mousse on his head. This was Tokyo. If they were in Jiang City, they would be covered in dirt after going out for a walk. Apart from Qin Mo, the only normal person was Shui Yaoyao. Of course, there was also Fu Jiu. In fact, Fu Jiu didn't understand what was going on with his teammates. She turned around and asked Shui Yaoyao, they don't look like they are going to meet a friendly team. They look like they are going on a blind date. Even Baby Feng took off his glasses seriously and put on a pair of brown contact lenses. He looked more than twice as handsome in an instant. Is there a need to go through so much trouble? Fu Jiu waited for Baby Feng to wash his hair for 30 minutes, which is as long as a young girl needs to put on makeup. Lin Feng glanced at Fu Jiu and acted like an experienced person. Little Spade, you don't understand. If you don't dress up when you stand beside Captain, you won't be remembered at all. Moreover, our friendly team is Callie. Think about it, don't you think this is the most important factor in your life to get rid of being single? Fu Jiu repeated the two words, and there was only one sentence in her eyes. I don't know them. All the team members, including Shui Yaoyao, looked at Fu Jiu in surprise. No way, Little Spade, you don't know Callie when you play hero. The expression on Lin Feng's face almost became a highlight. They are so famous, especially in the hearts of us otakus. They are simply a concentration camp for goddesses. Fu Jiu laughed and took off her mask. She pointed at her face and said, you don't deserve to be an otaku with your looks. Otaku have their own standards for looks. I'm so handsome, so forget it. Lin Feng. Damn it, the second wave of attacks. Yes, yes. You're the most handsome. Lin Feng really wanted to drag this guy over and beat him up. But no matter what, it's weird that you don't know Carly. Everyone who follows Hero should know her. Fu Jiu glanced at Qin Mo, who hadn't spoken to her all this time, and suddenly curled up her thin lips. I've only heard of Almighty Qin. I've never heard of anyone else. Lin Feng, Yunhu, Secretary Liang. At this time, people suddenly remembered the news that Little Spade was playing games to chase after Captain. Now it seemed that it was true. When Qin Mo heard this, he lifted his eyes faintly. His eyes were cold, and his voice was low. Do you believe him? Otherwise, why wouldn't a player of Hero know about the Kali Goddess Squad? Chapter 271. Brother Mo, if you don't say it out loud, we can still be friends. When Fujio first started playing games, it was indeed to earn some pocket money. Now that she was participating in the national competition, it was also to help Yihonghua take back the company. Fujio's words sounded unbelievable to the others. The new player king in Zone C playing hero was actually an accident. What was going on? Fujio looked at everyone's eyes on her and smiled again. But since we decided to play, we will do our best. Our goal is the national competition, right? Lin Feng was still confused. Then what did you want to do at the beginning? Get so many first clears in Zone C. Make money. Fu Zhongyi removed me from the Fu family. My mom's company is in trouble. If we don't make money, our villa will be bought. I can't let that third will get what he wants. First, I need a sum of money. It's quite profitable to help people in games. Fu Jiu was telling the truth. Feng Shang looked at her with a pitiful face. Oh idol, I didn't know you were so poor. Fu Jiu. Did she look poor? She couldn't play with these rich second generations anymore. After hearing this, Shui Yaoyao looked at Fu Jiu in a different light. She never thought that His Highness Jiu would have to deal with all this. She thought that with the Fu family's power, at least His Highness Jiu wouldn't have to make money by himself, but now that she thought about it, if the Fu family didn't have any problems, His Highness Jiu wouldn't have to pretend to be a boy. Maybe it was because His Highness Jiu was so cool and handsome that people forgot that she actually had to shoulder the same burden as everyone else. She was indeed confused. Only people who had been treated unfairly would say those words in front of the media. Fu Jiu saw Shui Yaoyao looking at her, so she looked over and raised her eyebrows. Then she smiled again, looking handsome and gentle. Shui Yaoyao felt her heart melt at that moment. She had found the existence of a benchmark. Okay, let's go out. The business car is here. Secretary Liang basically took over Feng Yi's work. In fact, it was a bit of a waste to let a CEO's secretary do these things. But to ensure that Boss Qin didn't become gay, he had to follow him without anyone else's help. The Qin group was indeed rich. They even chose a top-notch brand for their business car. It was a pure black model that was very comfortable to sit in. Fu Jiu didn't move immediately. Instead, she put half of the yen in her pocket into Shui Yaoyao's palm after everyone got into the MPV. Buy whatever you like. Tokyo is a shopping paradise for women. You probably haven't had time to exchange it for Japanese currency. Shui Yaoyao opened her mouth to reject. Fu Jiu pulled her hand over and dragged her into the car. You can return it to me later, okay? Lin Feng sat in the huge commercial car. When he saw this scene, he couldn't help but rub his chin. Why do I feel that little Spade treats little sister Yao exceptionally well? Didn't you say Supreme Alliance only has one girl and we have to cherish her? Yun who didn't mind. Lin Feng was still mumbling, that's different. Anyway, it's exceptionally good. I can't really describe it. Chapter 272. The training place was the biggest gaming arena in Tokyo. What was the most important thing in gaming? That was the atmosphere. Why were so many people willing to go to the internet cafe when they had a computer at home? Just ask those who have played AU or Dazzle Dance and they'll know. Sitting together, playing the rhythm, typing on the keyboard, that crisp sound made people feel great. It was the same when playing Hero. Hero was a game that paid great attention to strategy and teamwork. That was why so many people liked it. The gaming arena was very lively. All of them were Japanese teenagers who liked gaming. Some of them were even carrying backpacks and beating electronic drums. The first floor was the public area, similar to the large-scale gaming arenas in China. But in Tokyo, this kind of place was very important. Even the people who distributed the flyers were dressed in costumes that were cosplayed from the anime. They were very, very cute girls wearing a pure white foxtail. When they winked at you, not only would boys like them, but girls would also be happy. Shui Yao Yao came here, and it was like she had opened a new world. She looked at everything in surprise. It was really lively here. The dancing machines were arranged in a row, and there were even 2 dancers fighting on them. Every movement was very handsome. When Fujio and her group came in, people only raised their eyebrows when they saw their uniforms. Chinese. Secretary Liang, a middle-aged man in a suit, was completely out of place here. So he coughed heavily and continued to lead the way. Not this floor. The training base is on the 6th floor. Baby Feng, the otaku who stayed at home all year round, looked at Secretary Liang with doubt, as if to say, "Are you sure you want to train here, in a place where people come and go?" Secretary Liang pushed up the glasses on his face. The place was chosen by Vice President Feng. I believe he must have his reasons for doing so. What reasons? Feng Shang stuttered even harder when he was alone. Secretary Liang. How did he know? He was just a secretary who handled business meetings. How could he know anything about gaming? Because this is the best place to train your reaction speed and hand speed. She glanced at the dance machine on the left, and her eyes seemed to have the afterglow of the lights. When you're tired from playing games, you can come down and exercise a bit to relieve your stress. The dance machine is used to train your body coordination and reflexes. There's a game called Starlight over there, and the principle is similar to Rhythm Master. You can hit the cubes to the music. But if you choose the hard mode, you'll realize that your hands might not be able to keep up with the movements of your eyes. The main problem is that your eyes can't keep up with the speed of the cubes, so it's very useful for training your hand speed and peripheral vision. Not only Feng Shang, but even Secretary Liang was stunned. Then, he came back to his senses and said with certainty, "That's right. What young Master Jiu said is the reason why we chose to train here." Everyone. Are you sure you really know? Secretary Liang didn't care about the awkwardness anymore. He directly led the crowd forward. Lin Feng tilted his head. "Little Spade, we didn't understand Fox Feng's intentions, how did you know? And he's so familiar with this place. This is the first time I've heard that these things can be used to train hand speed." Chapter 273. Hearing that, the team members turned to look at Secretary Liang. Secretary Liang shook his head with a smile. "I didn't know young Master Jiu very well before, so I don't know." The team members were disappointed and went to look elsewhere. Secretary Liang really didn't want to talk about Fujio's glorious past. Moreover, he only knew that young Master Fu liked to go to nightclubs, but he didn't know that he liked to come to places like this and had such a deep intention, to practice his hand speed. Secretary Liang somehow felt that Fujio had noticed something, and she said that specifically to him. But Secretary Liang thought about it carefully and didn't think it was possible. A high school student shouldn't be that meticulous, right? The corners of Fujio's mouth curled up in a scheming manner. When she brushed past him, she smiled again. "Secretary Liang, tell me honestly, are you afraid that I will turn Brother Mo gay?" She spoke in a low voice, and in such a crowded place, only a few people heard it. Moreover, the team members' attention was on all kinds of game consoles. Secretary Liang was always calm, but at this moment, he couldn't help but be shocked. His face was expressionless as he smiled gently. "Young Master Jiu, you think too much." "Oh, then I'll sleep in Brother Mo's room tonight." Fujio liked to tease people like Secretary Liang. In fact, Brother Mo is quite indulgent with me, don't you think? Secretary Liang. What's the difference between your tone and a spoiled concubine's? Can't you just play properly? He took a deep breath. Young Master Joe, you must be joking. CEO Qin has always treated you as a younger brother. After all, he's the only child in the Qin family. He played alone when he was young, and he wanted to get close to you when he saw you. Oh. Fu Jiu nodded. I'll believe you for now. Secretary Liang. For now, but don't worry, no one dares to turn Brother Mo gay. Fu Jiu had one hand in her pocket, and her voice was still indifferent. Whoever turns him gay will sleep with him. I'm not stupid. You don't have to isolate me and Brother Mo every time you see us together. Be careful, Brother Mo might get angry and send you to the wilderness to be his secretary. The last sentence was the main point. Secretary Liang's heart was in turmoil. He only had one thought, what's wrong with students nowadays? He was suppressed by a college student, Boss Qin. After all, Boss Qin's aura and means were there. Now, he was being suppressed by a high school student. Most importantly, what the young man said made sense. He couldn't refute it. Each floor is truly a different world. Lin Feng didn't hear what Fu Jiu and Secretary Liang were talking about. He nudged the young man with his shoulder. Little Spade, we'll be on the 6th floor soon. Trust me, the scenery on the 6th floor is not about these cold machines. The most important thing is the Cali girls, especially their captain. Have you heard of Ice Beauty Lioli? He lived up to his name. He had a good temperament and good looks. His family owned an entertainment company. He was rich and wealthy. She's young and has just started university, but she's good at playing games. She's very pretty, and she doesn't know any of the popular celebrities at all. She has most of the male fans and hero, but Miss Luli doesn't lack money, so she doesn't live stream much. She's the same as the captain, very cold and aloof. You'll know when you see her, but you can only watch from afar. After all. Chapter 274. The smart Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows in surprise. She knew very well what Lin Feng meant by, you know. She laughed along with him. Then does the Ice Beauty like Brother Mo? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Lin Feng nodded hard, as if to say, bro, you're so smart. I figured it out myself, so don't tell anyone. I'm not sure if she likes me or not, but that Ice Beauty smiles every time she sees Captain Fu Jiu. Isn't that called liking? Then tell me what liking looks like, I figured it out. What do you think? I'm good, right? Lin Feng lowered his voice. So, Little Spade, follow your brother in the team, and you'll have meat to eat. Fu Jiu looked at him seriously. If you can figure it out, then everyone else must have figured it out too. What's there to be proud of? Lin Feng, Fu Jiu didn't talk to the petrified Lin Feng anymore. But she felt more and more like this was a blind date, not a friendly team. She suspected that this friendly team was arranged by Manager Feng to stimulate his teammates' energy. For example, in front of beautiful girls, boys would try their best to look as handsome as possible. No wonder people called him Fox Feng, for he could even think of this kind of thing. Oh. Brother Feng. Brother Tiger. Captain. You're finally here. As soon as they reached the 6th floor, they didn't see any girls, but they saw a figure rushing towards them. That figure was none other than the popular Coco. It turned out that he had arrived long ago and came directly to the training ground. I'm not going to the all-star competition anymore, I want to stay with everyone. Fight together. Fatty was there too, but his reaction was completely different from Coco's. He said to Fujio excitedly, "I've prepared the computer, how about we PK? How did you dodge my attack last time and throw the virus at me at the same time? That was a beautiful move." Fujio didn't expect Fatty to be so enthusiastic when they met again. Fatty was a fanatical hacker, and he was very persistent in this aspect. "Oh right, what's your ranking in our field?" "How did I?" "Fatty," Chin Mo said. Chin Mo interrupted him with a cold voice. "You want to be a vegetarian for a week again?" Instantly, Fatty shut his mouth. Even Coco stood at attention. Boss Chin, Captain, didn't seem to be in a good mood. Even his eyes were as cold as ice. "Why?" Fatty and Coco turned to look at the members at the same time, trying to find an answer. Everyone used their eyes to express that they didn't know either. For some reason, the atmosphere at the scene was a little stiff. Fortunately, a burst of laughter came from the other side, breaking the tension. "Coco asked you to pick someone up. Why are you chatting here?" As soon as he finished speaking, no less than 7 long-legged beauties walked over. Each of them was wearing the battle uniform specially made for the battle team. They were all red, with short skirts and long boots, giving off an extremely beautiful feeling. The one who spoke was obviously more imposing, but he wasn't the most good-looking one among them. Chapter 275. Fujio curled up the corner of her lips. This must be the Lioli beauty that Lin Feng was talking about. The beauty brought many girls behind her and walked towards them. It was indeed very pleasing to the eye. Most of the Supreme Alliance members were men. Even a man would feel a little overwhelmed when he saw so many girls. Each of them was extremely pure, looking sideways and pretending to be cool. This made all the beauties in the friendly team laugh. There are girls in the team this time. There was a girl in the Kali team. Her eyes were round as she looked towards Shui Yaoyao. Shui Yaoyao was about to say something. That girl spoke again with a bit of petulance. "Coco, you're lying. You said that the Supreme Alliance doesn't want girls. There weren't any before." Coco often does shows and live broadcasts outside, so he knows a lot of people. It's inevitable that he will meet friends who want to join the Supreme Alliance. But he wasn't sure about the captain's recruitment requirements, so he used this excuse to refuse. After all, their intentions were too obvious. They didn't want to join the Supreme Alliance, but they wanted to get close to the captain. In order not to be frozen to death by the captain, of course he couldn't agree to their request, even if they were popular. Secretary Liang laughed. "Miss Xiaotong, as long as you are a master, the Supreme Alliance welcomes you." According to Secretary Liang, the cute girl called Xiaotong glanced at Shui Yaoyao, then she smiled and said hesitantly, "A beauty? A master?" Shui Yaoyao was a little embarrassed. Maybe others couldn't tell, but as a girl, the girl's pause when talking about the beauty showed that there was a hidden meaning in her words. "My name is Lin Xiaotong, and I'm called Tong Xiao Dian in the game. You should have heard of me." Lin Xiaotong reached out her hand, seemingly to shake Shui Yaoyao's hand in a friendly manner. Before the people from the Supreme Alliance came, they had already heard about this year's situation from their friends. Not only was there a gay in the Fu family, there was also a very fat girl who was quite famous in No. 1 middle school. It was said that she came from a poor family, liked to steal, and didn't like to bathe. Lin Xiaotong didn't like Shui Yaoyao at first sight. How could such a person be qualified to join the Supreme Alliance? It was an insult to the real professional teams. Lin Xiaotong was waiting for Shui Yaoyao to extend her hand with a smile. She and the entire Kali team were very sweet. Shui Yaoyao had been through a lot. She knew that this was probably a common tactic used by some pretty girls. Some fights only belonged to girls. Boys basically couldn't understand it. Even though she knew that the other party was trying to put her down, Shui Yaoyao couldn't just throw a tantrum at him right now. That would only give people more reasons to talk about her, saying that she had a lot of ugly things to do. Shui Yaoyao clenched her right hand and was about to move. However, there was one person who reached out his hand even faster than her. I'm sorry, we've only heard of Supreme Alliance. We don't know much about the other teams. It was Fuzhou. With her silver hair and dark eyes, she always gave off a sharp aura. She was such a gentle person. At this moment, even his smiling lips seemed to carry an imperceptible chill. The young man held Lin Xiaodong's hand gently. His side profile was handsome and youthful. Lin Xiaodong stilled. Only Supreme Alliance. Fuzhou was still laughing. Supreme Alliance is famous. Did he mean that Carly was not famous? Chapter 276. The Cali team also had two girls who were really generous, and they didn't know what they were talking about. Lin Xiaotong was small and sweet, and she thought that she was considerate. But in fact, when something happened, she would think that the other side was picking on her. Such a person would never think that it was she who crossed the other side's bottom line, and that was why there was a follow-up. I'm sorry, our Cali team isn't that famous. Lin Xiaotong said sarcastically, but young Master Fu, sometimes you have to see if your way of doing things is appropriate. After all, you have become a member of the Supreme Alliance. It's better to think about some things before you speak. Fuzhou raised her eyebrows. I've thought it through, so I have something to ask Secretary Liang. As she said this, the youngster looked sideways and smiled. Is this really a friendly team of our Supreme Alliance? Secretary Liang knew something was wrong when he saw the situation. He was anxious, thinking that Lin Xiaotong, of all people you could have messed with, why did you have to mess with such a tough opponent? Secretary Liang always dealt with things calmly. Yes, let's go in first, and we can talk about the small talk later. Since Secretary Liang said so, Fuzhou had to give face to old Liang. Secretary Liang. When did he become old Liang? But Lin Xiaotong was not happy. What do you mean by this is really a friendly team of our Supreme Alliance? Young Master Fu, you have to explain yourself, right? It wasn't until this moment that the rough men of the Supreme Alliance realized that something was wrong, and they all looked at Fuzhou. Did they start a fight? Fuzhou stopped and looked indifferent. Miss Lin, you are not important enough for me to explain anything. If you really want an explanation, why don't you talk about your attitude just now? Shui Yaoyao is my teammate. I don't care what you think, but please remember one thing. You disrespected her, so you were picking on me. You. Lin Xiaotong still wanted to say something. Beauty Liuli, who was standing beside her, reached out and pressed down on her wrist. Xiaotong, you're used to speaking carelessly, that's why people misunderstand you. Be more careful next time. It's not like we've known Supreme Alliance for the first time, we're all old friends, don't let this cause a rift between us. Young Master Fu, I apologize on behalf of Xiaotong. It's inevitable that there will be friction between the two teams. Now that the Supreme Alliance has new members, we need to work together. This girl wanted to join the Supreme Alliance, but she didn't. Now that she sees you guys in, it's inevitable that she will feel uncomfortable. Fuzhou looked at Liuli. As Liuli spoke, she nodded at Lin Xiaodong's head with a faint smile in a very intimate manner. When Shui Yaoyao heard this, she tugged at the corner of Fuzhou's clothes. She didn't want to cause trouble for His Highness Zhou. Fuzhou looked sideways at that round face, and it was easy to think of He Honghua at home. If it weren't for Shui Yaoyao, Yin Wuyao, and Feng Shang, there wouldn't be a selection contest. She couldn't let anyone trample on her people. That was her principle. So it's jealousy. Fu Jiu laughed and looked at Lin Xiaotong. That's easy to understand. Chapter 277. Liuli was a person who knew how to conduct herself, not to mention that she didn't want to waste the few opportunities to get close to that man this year. Of course, she couldn't change it because of other things. She leaned to the left. Let's go in and have a look. This year's scale is bigger than in previous years. Sakura Stream Team is also training. We had a fight with them 3 days ago. To be honest, we were badly beaten. Sakura Stream Team's fighting power has more than doubled. Compared with last year, they are like two different people. Now, every minute and every second is very important to you. As for the running in, we can take our time. Now, let's go to the training. These words easily made the attention of the Supreme Alliance members focus on how strong the Sakura Stream squad was. Their original playful thoughts also became serious, and they didn't think about the small frictions just now. The training room wasn't a rigid office. There were a few computers placed around the training room for the team members to practice their skills. If that was the case, it would be more convenient to stay in Jiang City, and they wouldn't have to fly to Tokyo. The training room here was more like a very large internet cafe. No, it wasn't exactly an internet cafe. It was full of computers, and there were countless people sitting there. But these people were fundamentally different from the ordinary people who played games in the internet cafe. They were all professional players from all over Tokyo. If they wanted to play games, they would come here to relax. That was to say, every person you met here was a professional player. Every professional player had a different playing style. Training here could effectively help the Supreme Alliance judge which playing style to use when facing the national competition. What do you think? When Liuli said this, she tilted her head towards Qin Mo, and there was a soft smile at the corner of her mouth. Seeing this scene, do you want to go down and have a fight? Qin Mo put one hand in his trouser pocket and didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the youngster not far away. Fu Jiu stood by Shui Yaoyao's side, with a lollipop in her mouth. Her expression was very indifferent, but because of that, it seemed that the youngster was protecting the person next to him. Qin Mo's gaze paused, his fingers tightening. She looked over and saw that he was looking at Fu Jiu. Her beautiful eyebrows couldn't help but wrinkle, and then she said with a smile, I heard that Spade Z is very powerful. I know people from the Fu family, but I didn't expect Spade Z to be him. No matter what, with Spade Z joining the team, the Supreme Alliance's attack power should be stronger. But I heard that he hasn't gone through professional training. I wonder if there will be any flaws in the National League. Fu Jiu smiled and said, You're right. I won't, Qin Mo replied. His voice was calm and his side profile was still handsome and noble. Liuli smiled faintly. For Almighty Qin to be so sure, even I want to spar with him. I can see that he's quite loyal and protective. That chubby girl should be quite happy being by his side. Hearing this, Qin Mo retracted his gaze and looked at Liuli's face. Liuli's smile became even sweeter. There wasn't the slightest hint of coldness that an ice beauty should have. Whether it was the Supreme Alliance or the Kali team, they were all looking at this scene, imagining a lot of things. Captain and Almighty Qin are so compatible. Chapter 278. Shui Yaoyao didn't think so. She had seen Almighty Qin in a completely relaxed state, but it wasn't like this. Instead, he pinched the youngster's chin with a smile on the badminton court. There was something indescribable in his eyes. Although it might not necessarily be called liking, it was obvious that when Almighty Qin and Highness Zhou were together, they were always different. But of course, she wouldn't say this out loud. Because some words would put people in a difficult position. She came from a small family, but she also understood that she shouldn't put her own self-righteous imagination on others. You can fantasize, but don't be bothered by it. Secretary Liang knew the most about this. He knew who Boss Qin disliked being paired with the most. He immediately said, "Let's try the machine first. If it's not, I'll make arrangements." Such a formal statement naturally made Carly's side much quieter. Come. Let's play a few rounds." Lin Feng zipped up his jacket and got ready to go. The others also handed their backpacks to Secretary Liang. The members of the Kali squad also smiled at each other and sat next to them. The input method displayed on the machine was Japanese, so it needed to be changed. Shui Yaoyao didn't have the chance to learn Japanese, so she didn't know where to place her hands on the keyboard. There were 3 or 4 people on Carly's side, but they had no intention of helping at all. They chatted and laughed as they entered the game. Usually, it was best for girls to help other girls in such matters. Shui Yaoyao knew that he wouldn't help her. The effects of being fat and poor on a person were far from obvious. She lowered her head and tried to press the keyboard, but it was still a little difficult. At that moment, everyone heard the sound of a chair being pulled. Fu Jiu stood up and walked to the seat next to Shui Yaoyao. Then, she pointed at the girl who was still laughing. "Please change seats." The members of the Kali team also liked Fu Jiu's face. The girl blushed and wanted to act coquettishly with Fu Jiu. "Do you have to change? I quite like being here." Fu Jiu smiled and suddenly leaned down. She held the back of the chair with one hand, and her thin lips slid past her left ear. "You insisted on changing." Qin Mo couldn't be more familiar with this action. But this time, his eyes were filled with coldness. After being flirted with in such a way, the girl was already confused. When she sat down again, she didn't know why she gave in so easily. But Spade Z was really handsome. He wasn't gay like they said at all. That girl changed her seat and was still smiling sweetly at Fu Jiu. This scene was naturally seen by everyone. Lin Feng whistled. "You're amazing, my Z. Is this a common posture for picking up girls? How could that be?" Fu Jiu was telling the truth. But no one believed her. Lin Feng tapped on the keyboard. What he meant was that he would teach his brother a few backup moves when they entered the game later. Fu Jiu blinked and nodded with a smile. Qin Mo still had earphones on his black hair. When he saw the youngster sitting beside him, he turned his perfectly chiseled handsome face to the side. Because the youngster was so close to him, his eyes finally regained a trace of warmth. Chapter 279. The first thing Fu Jiu did when she sat down wasn't to touch her computer, but to turn around and tilt to a certain degree. She held the mouse beside Shui Yaoyao's hand and said in a soft voice, "Instead of familiarizing yourself with the input method here, why don't I help you download the one we Chinese are used to?" Fu Jiu's hand speed was really fast. Even in such a position, it was no problem for her to switch and crack. After the program was installed, she pressed enter, and it was the familiar Chinese input method. Not every key was used in the game, so there was no need to explain the Japanese sound. As long as the account password was entered, there would be no obstacles in the operation. Shui Yaoyao looked at the screen in front of her, still surprised that His Highness Zhou would notice her. She saw that the young man had already sat up straight and put on his headphones. "If you have any problems, tell me." Shui Yaoyao agreed and also entered battle mode. This was indeed a good place to improve her strength. Shui Yao Yao had her own ideas. She saw His Highness Zhou's protectiveness. Because of this, she wanted to make herself stronger. She didn't want a situation like today to happen a second time, and she wanted His Highness Zhou to stand up for her. His Highness Zhou also had his own things to do. If she really wanted to help His Highness Zhou one day, wasn't she strong? What qualifications did she have? Sometimes, even Shui Yao Yao herself didn't know that under Fu Zhou's influence, her thoughts had changed. Be good to your parents, even if you were wronged outside. Be stronger to be qualified to say that you were a useful person. Fu Zhou was indeed good to Shui Yao Yao. This had nothing to do with Shui Yao Yao, but she herself wanted to be good to this girl. Sensible, kind, loyal. Yes, loyal. The first two were easy to do, but the last one was getting rarer and rarer nowadays. As long as it didn't suit her, she would easily betray her. This was something that too many people would do, as early as that day, when Shui Yao Yao handed her the school uniform and asked her to cover the blood on her back. Fu Zhou knew that this person was worth her effort to teach. She was very clear that there were too many people who liked her because she was dressed as a man. Once she returned to being a woman, she might face a lot of questions and disgust. But Shui Yao Yao didn't ask anything. She just accompanied her and walked silently. There was never a need to ask for true support. This was Liang Chaoi's love for Carino Lao. Friends should also be like this, however, in the eyes of others, such a scene would have a different meaning. After all, Fu Zhou was still in men's clothes. Every time she turned her head to talk to Shui Yao Yao, it looked very intimate. Qin Mo glanced sideways. It was rare that his attention wasn't entirely on the computer screen. It was a 1v1 qualifier. The person on the other end didn't know Chinese either, so he typed a sentence in Japanese. The gist of it was, "Why are you standing there for so long? Why aren't you fighting? If you don't fight, I'll leave after I drain your last drop of blood." Who would have thought that as soon as he said that? There was a burst of silver light on the screen, and before he could even move, he was directly KO'd on the arena. One move. Killed by him in one move. Chapter 280. When did China's esports become so powerful? That professional player was a little suspicious. He wanted to confirm the other party's identity. After all, some people in Tokyo also used Chinese characters to name themselves. Who knew that at this moment, there was a loud bang. The person next to him fiercely tapped on the keyboard and said in Japanese, "Are you kidding me? So fast. I didn't even have time to react, and it's even a Chinese name." The pro player heard his friend's words and turned to look at his computer. It was a man again. He couldn't understand it, only a code name. Z. Fu Zhou had always been like this when she played games. In a 1v1, she would definitely destroy the opponent quickly. However, what Lioli didn't understand was why the man sitting next to her was playing so differently from before. What was wrong with the lazy, noble, and unhurried man today? The coldness in Qin Mo's eyes was transmitted into the game through the mouse and keyboard. Just when the members of Supreme Alliance finally eliminated one and were about to eliminate the second one, they saw their captain's name appear on the Japanese server's leaderboard. Entered the rankings. Although it was a 1v1 ranking, what would the pro players who came here every day think? Anne. Little Spade, what the hell are you doing? Do you have to be so crazy? You're only one rank behind Captain. Lin Feng turned his head and looked in Fu Zhou's direction. He knocked on his headphones, asking Fu Zhou to listen to the voice. Fu Zhou whispered while playing the game, "What's wrong? What's going on with you and Captain? Was he trying to drive them crazy?" Lin Feng lowered his voice and said, in front of the girls, "Give me some face." Don't be too handsome, or else how am I going to attack later? Fu Jiu chuckled. I'm fast when I play games. I'll slow down later. Actually, it's fine if it's just you, but why is even the captain like this today? Lin Feng let out a long sigh. His usual style wasn't like this. Could it be that the girl's stimulation method was also suitable for Captain? Lioli was so beautiful that even the captain was convinced. When Fu Jiu heard this, she looked towards the empty space on her left. Qin Mo waved the mouse in his hand, his left hand sliding across the keyboard. His fingers moved so quickly that no one could see his movements clearly. This was the first time Fu Jiu had watched the Almighty play games in real life. Very handsome. His fingers looked good too. No wonder so many people wanted to watch the Almighty's live stream. Their specialties were indeed different. What's more, that devilishly handsome face always gave people an indescribable sense of nobility. The positions of the two captains were different from them. There would be an empty space in the middle. This was a characteristic of every team captain. Perhaps because he was too focused on the fight, his black hair fell down and moved with the man's movements, giving off a very cool feeling. Fu Jiu couldn't help but take a few more glances, but she couldn't help but meet the gaze of the person sitting beside Qin Mo. This wasn't strange. After all, Lioli hadn't started a game since Qin Mo started the game. Instead, she had been looking at the man sitting next to her. Because it was only at this time that the infatuation in her eyes would not be discovered. But he didn't expect the young man to turn around. Chapter 281. Unconsciously, Lioli furrowed her eyebrows lightly. Usually, people's subconscious reactions were the most real. At that moment, she couldn't control her emotions. She couldn't hide the dislike in her eyes, and it was conveyed to the young man. Fu Jiu only raised her eyebrows and looked at Lioli with interest. That glance made Lioli react quickly. Her current demeanor was not right. She immediately smiled with a hint of shyness, as if Fu Jiu had seen through her secret love for Almighty Qin and nothing else. Fu Jiu was a little shy. She was just a little shy. Such a girl was very smart, and she wouldn't let anyone see through her. However, Fu Jiu was reborn, and she had been in contact with many people. Plus, she was also a woman. Women knew the subtleties between women the best. She was almost certain that Captain Luli was not as generous as the rumors made her out to be. On the contrary, Captain Luli did not like her, and could even be said to hate her. However, in front of everyone, she had shown that she was capable and magnanimous. Fu Jiu retracted her gaze and looked at the game character she was controlling. This friendly team wasn't friendly to them. The them here didn't refer to the Supreme Alliance. It referred to her and Shui Yaoyao. The captain was like this, and the team members were like this. Thinking of this, Fu Jiu raised her hand and slashed at the game character. No matter how the other side looked at them, it was best to keep this thought in mind and not do anything. Otherwise, she wouldn't give face to anyone. She was a girl herself, so she didn't need to be protective of the fairer sex. Time passed slowly, and no one noticed the brief exchange of glances. Secretary Liang was standing behind Qin Mo, and his attention was all on Qin Mo's left hand. CEO Qin's hand was still injured, so he couldn't do this for a long time. Moreover, CEO Qin's attack was especially aggressive today. Why? Secretary Liang didn't understand, but he kept an eye on the time. When it was almost an hour, he immediately stopped the game, because he was worried that it would exceed the endurance of Qin Mo's left hand. Lin Feng and the others hadn't had enough yet, so they all turned around and looked at Secretary Liang. Secretary Liang chuckled. It's already 5:00. It's not easy for the two teams to meet, so let's have dinner together. I've already arranged the restaurant. Miss Lioli, please. Outside, of course, guests had priority. The girls also liked this kind of treatment. They all logged off the game and stood up. The Supreme Alliance members were hungry too. They wanted to eat meat, not the simple meals on the plane. They packed their things and retreated quickly. When Sakura Stream Squad got the news and rushed here, there was no Chinese in the training team. But the influence of Qin Mo and Fu Jiu still remained. Amazing. Is it a Chinese team? It should be, but I don't know which row he's sitting in. On this side, the other members of the Tokyo squad were still looking for them when they saw the members of Sakura Stream Squad in their uniforms coming in. In Tokyo, the influence of Sakura Stream was equivalent to that of the Supreme Alliance in Jiang City. Hence, when they walked in, the rest of the teams were all shocked. Sakura Stream, why are they here? You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.